Assalamualikum OyaRahmatullahe OyaBarakatuhu. Innal hamdanillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Muhammad Kamrul Hussain, Department of Business Administration, Metropolitan University, Sylhet. Welcome to my virtual classroom, MKA Classroom. Now let's start today's video tutorial. Today we will try to discuss Keynesian view on public finance. Keynesian view. Keynesian view on public finance. So at first we have to say that Mr. Keynes has challenged the classical views of public finance. He challenged that private enterprise economy automatically ensures full employment. He challenged this topic. So, in classical view, we have said that, but we have learned that private enterprise uses the resources and become full employment without interference of government. When the in this here Keynes challenged this theory. He argued that it is not possible if there is not effective demand. He focused on effective demand. Effective demand. He focused on effective demand. So, he argued that if in the economy has the effective demand, then economy is automatically is in equilibrium positions. So, he has said employment depends on effective demand and there is no guarantee that there will be always adequate effective demand to guarantee but generate full employment. So, unemployment arises because of the lack of effective demand or deficiency of effective demand. That is why there create unemployment problem in the economy. So, he argued that then we have to create effective demand by use expenditures. So, in classical view we have learned that the classical view doesn't support the deficit budget, but he said, Keynes said, but in the economy whenever is in bad positions, there should have the deficit budget to create the effective demand. And when there is unemployment, the classical perceptions of public finance is no longer valid. So, if there are unemployed resources, there is no special virtue in keeping budget as small as possible. So, it is not possible to have the budget small. If there are unemployed resources in the economy, so there is no special virtue to keeping the budget as small as possible, or budget should be balanced. So, in classical economy we have learned that the budget should be as small as possible and should be balanced. But the Keynes has said that if the resources are unemployed, so it is not the virtue to keep the budget as small as possible, and budget should be balanced. When the resources are unemployed, it is the duty of the state to increase effective demand by increasing its expenditures. Far from being an evil, a budget deficit during a depreciation helps to rise the level of employment and output. So, if the government increases its expenditures, then there has opportunity to increase employment rate and output of the economy. And whenever economy is in the depreciation, so there should be deficit budget. Similarly, whenever resources are unemployed, it is no longer true that the uses of resources by the government is unproductive and inflationary, and there is no special virtue in not resorting to borrowing to the finance and increase in government expenditures. Similarly, during periods of demand of deficiency, it is no good taxing consumptions. It is better to tax savings rather than consumption. So, as we want to rise the level of demand and not reduce it. With Keynes' revelations, there are a scope of public finance has been greatly enlarged. It is emphasized that there is the duty of fiscal authorities to avoid extremes of both depreciations and as well as inflations. During a depreciation, fiscal policy should help in increasing demand. For this purpose, the government can increase its expenditures and spend more on public works. This will provide employment to more people, or else the government can increase expenditures on subsidies to producers of mass consumptions commodities so as to increase consumers spending. Similarly, government can lower its tax rates so as to stimulate consumptions and investment. Thus, a budget deficit during a depreciation is a positive help in fighting unemployment. So, whenever economy is in depreciation, so government should use the deficit budget. So, if you think that government will reduce its taxes, that means the people has more money in his hand and he will consume more than previous. That means if you income 10,000, if the government take you from 2,000 as a tax, then you have 8,000 taka to spend. Then your budget, your monthly budget or yearly budget should be in 8,000 taka. Whenever government reduces taxes, then you have to pay tax 1,000 per year. Then you have 9,000 in your hand to spend in the economy. That's a result. You spend more, and the economy has more circulations of funds, then there will reduce the depreciations in the economy. So, it is the tools of government to reduce tax rate at the time of depreciations to create more effective demand. We know the formula for demand. Demand, if you have more money, you have more demand. More money, more demand. If you have more money, then you have more demand. So, in this way, in the time of depreciations, government can create more effective demand in this way. As a result, the economy has tried to remove these depreciations, remove the depreciation. So, now we are talking about the inflationary situations. Now we are talking about the depreciation period. then reduce government tax rate, reduce government's tax rate at the time of depreciations, reduce government tax rate, depreciations, reduce government tax rate. On the other hand, whenever economy has the inflationary situations, government will increase its tax rate, increase its taxes. That means, if we know the inflationary situations when it arises, whenever people has more money to purchase, then it create the inflations. That means, if the people has more money to purchase, then create inflations. In the previous examples, we have said that if you have 9,000 taka in your hand, then you purchase more 1,000 taka. That is more money, more demand, more inflation. So, at the time of inflationary period, government try to reduce this money by increasing tax. As a result, reduce our effective demand. If reduce the effective demand, then there will create again equilibrium positions by the imposing taxes. So, during periods of inflations, there is too much demand, hence government should reduce its own expenditures and also curb private spending by increasing taxes. Thus, in periods of inflations, we should have surplus budgets. So, at the time of inflationary period, government should provide the surplus budget. Therefore, there is no inherent superiority in a balance or a surplus budget. At war depends on the prevailing economic situations. So, in the classical view, we have said that there should have a balanced budget, but in Keynes said that it should have surplus budget or should have the deficit budget whenever it necessary. So, this view of public finance is also called by the name of functional finance. So, this is also called the functional finance. Functional finance. Because revenues and expenditures are not to be considered as being occasioned solely by the requirement of government finance, but with regard to the requirements of attaining and maintaining full employments. This all about today. Stay home, stay safe, try to maintain a safe social distance, try to wash your hands frequently in a day. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaika. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuhu.